A real crime. In a series of podcasts, I want you to travel down some lonely roads with me. These are the roads I traveled with families who never got to say goodbye to loved ones. These family members were fated to live the rest of their lives waiting and wondering. I will begin this series with unsolved murders, but I will also revisit cases that include arrests because aspects of the case are worth re-examining. I wrote these stories when I worked as a reporter for the Charleston Gazette. I am grateful to you for listening today. I was always impressed with how brave the woman in this story is. She endured so much pain, and she tried to make sure no one else suffered like she and her siblings did. Episode 16, When Children Are Invisible to the System. At one point, suicide seemed the only option for a woman I will call Mary. Her mother was out of the picture. Mary, her sister, and her brother lived with their abusive father. He beat and raped all of them. Mary was 7, her older sister 8, and their brother 3. Their father took them to Maryland, where he lived in a hotel. His second wife had a job in the hotel's basement. Their father started his routine of fondling the girls while his wife was at work. Soon he added beatings to the sexual abuse. He kicked us or used his fists, or he would try to strangle you. He always left his mark on you. We were all scared of him. He would beat you down to the floor, she said. The 2 girls tried hiding from him, but once he found them, he became even more vicious. He promised them he would kill them if they told anyone about what he did. I believed him, and I never told anyone, Mary said. He eluded authorities by constantly moving his family between West Virginia and Maryland. Once in West Virginia, when she was in the 7th grade, social workers and police came to their house. It was night. They were shining flashlights, she remembered. All 3 children were taken away from their father, and sexual assault charges were filed against him. He entered a guilty plea to misdemeanor charges. The children were placed in 2 foster homes. After her father was released from jail, he regained custody of his daughters. His son stayed in the foster home and was adopted. The son went on to college. When she was 14, her stepmother died in her arms. Her stepmother had cancer. Many times Mary believed her stepmother tried to protect the children as much as she could. Mary remembered that her father hit her stepmother when she tried to stand up for the children. The same night that her stepmother died, her father tried to coerce her to get in bed with him. I just gave up at that point, Mary told me. I felt myself getting lower and lower into depression. I felt like this flood of bad feelings was washing over me. I was suicidal. Her sister ran away many times. Mary escaped by marrying when she was 15. After she decided to find her mother, she made some startling discoveries about the people who should have protected them. They knew about what she and her sister suffered. She asked to see her file at the Summersville Human Services office. I was so shocked by what I saw there, I had to be hospitalized for several days. Like many abuse victims, she managed to block out much of what happened to her, but in the file before her, she saw pictures someone took of her in school. She saw pictures of her 7th grade self. As she continued to read the file, she learned that social workers protected her brother and saw to it he was adopted. She was glad for her brother. They did nothing to protect me or my sister. I felt like an object, like a thing. In the file, she also learned that a social worker petitioned the court to allow her father to have custody of his daughters. The social worker told the court the father posed no threat to his daughters. Of course, Mary and her sister knew none of this at the time they were returned to him. I tried my best to bury all those memories, but they came flooding back as she looked through the file. She was able to find her mother, and they started working to build a new relationship after the many years her mother was out of her life. In time, she entered into a successful marriage, had children, and benefited from a supportive mother-in-law. But she filed suit in Kanawha County Circuit Court against 2 individual protective services workers who should have protected her, their immediate supervisor, the administrator of the Department of Health and Human Services, and the cabinet secretary for the Department of Health and Human Services. For these children, they were abused by their father and the system. She told me she hopes that changes could be made in the system so that no other children would suffer like she did. Human Services has been sued by other people who believe the system failed them. In this 2022 legislative session, for the second time, legislators failed to pass the bill that would have improved foster care. As a society, we cannot let children become invisible. Thanks again for listening, and thanks to Tommy Siner for his great work. Please join me next Wednesday for a new episode of A Real Crime by Susan Williams.